They're on the roads everywhere. They zip up and down on the paths. They don't care. Through the parks, around the schools, busy times.
She's talking about electric motorbikes, souped up to reach the speeds of around 50, even 70 miles per hour. Now, you might have seen them tearing through towns, their riders often in balaclavas, riding illegally to abreast.
There's police come up and down, but the bikes are just too fast. They're in and out the parks. I don't think the police can handle them.
Police say they do want to do more, though.
It is hugely frustrating because, trust me, we really do want to sort this issue out and get stuck into these people.
So why can't they? I'm Lucy Watson, and this is What You Need to Know. Now, joining me to talk about all things electric motorbikes is our Wales reporter, Rhys Williams. In a nutshell, Rhys, tell me what this big problem is.
These often get confused for e-bikes, but we're talking about electric motorbikes. They're almost like dirt bikes that have been often, but not always, modified to reach faster speeds. And I think it's not just the reckless riding of these vehicles that is causing a lot of distress and concern for police as well. It's sometimes the activities that are linked with what they're being used for, essentially. But we've certainly been hearing lots of complaints from people that I've spoken with in Newport, where we've been filming on this, about how fast and how dangerously a lot of these riders do ride through, not on just on the roads, but down canal paths, footpaths, on the pavements, and weaving in and out of traffic.
How much havoc are they causing?
Well, some of the most recent stats showed us that around 1,000 electric motorbikes were confiscated by police forces across England and Wales over a 12-month period, and that's almost a doubling from the 12 months before that. So clearly it's a growing problem. And I mean, in Gwent Police down in Southeast Wales in Newport, where I've been spending time, certainly the sergeant there told me that 50% of the complaints they get about antisocial behaviour are purely about this kind of reckless riding.
Wow,
So,
50%.
Yeah, and I spoke with a mother at a local park who said that she doesn't feel like she could walk on the canal path anymore because it just feels too dangerous. So it's clearly a concern for lots of people.
Who is riding in? Is it predominantly teenagers we're talking about?
I think largely, and I think sometimes as well, there's not necessarily anything else more sinister going on. They appeal to young lads in particular because they're cheaper than having a car. You don't have to register it. You don't have to have a license. It's a very quick and easy way to get around. But I think police are increasingly concerned, and I don't think this will come as a shock to anyone necessarily, that they're sometimes, because of their very nature, being linked to perhaps more nefarious activities. So drug running, for example, I know is a concern because they're quick to get away. It's hard for the police to catch them, and they're unregistered.
I mean, I had an experience at the weekend with someone on exactly the same kind of thing, a really, really fast electric motorbike. I came out of work, I was on an electric bike myself going home, and I'd just taken out my phone and I was just about to put it in the basket in front of me, and he came up right alongside me and reached out. It was in a balaclava, and he reached out to grab my phone. So, I mean, I know you're talking about Wales, but they're quite often used here in London to steal mobile phones, and just they're off like a shot because these bikes do, as we said at the very beginning, go so fast. What did you see then when you went out and about in Newport?
It was a real eye-opener. Two things I learned mainly, I think. One is how labour-intensive tackling this is for police forces, how many resources, how much time and effort it takes. But two, how difficult it is to catch anyone, really. And firstly, I think, we went on the first operation in an area of Newport called Betus, and, there were around nearly 20 officers, 5 or 6 vehicles, some of them unmarked, as well as other officers on foot, and a drone unit trying to keep sort of an eye on things in the sky to try and track these motorbikes to see where they go. And it was all day, and that's quite regular. They do that quite regularly. And, they managed to catch one bike, I think, that day. It's difficult, it's labor intensive. And the challenge was clear as well in terms of, within minutes of going out in the car, one of the nearby officers in a different car saw one of these vehicles. It went down the canal path. Even the drone can't see it because the trees are covering it. They tried to sort of go to some of the exits to find out where it went. but they couldn't find it after a couple of minutes. And this thing was going really quickly. Two lads on this bike with balaclavas, and the police say, they suspect that as soon as they see that the police are out, message goes around, probably on Snapchat, to say, get in. And that is a tactic of the police, is to follow these vehicles back to be able to get them where they're being kept. But it's not as easy as it sounds.
That was one of the things that really stood out when I watched your piece, Rhys, was they're heavily invested in trying to catch get hold of these bikes, catch these guys, using drone technology to pursue them. I mean, okay, it's sensible because they can't go down these narrow pathways, but I was just really staggered, I suppose, about the tech that's being used to try and crack down on this activity.
Absolutely. I think it's because there's a recognition that you can't just chase them everywhere. And I think certainly the perception perhaps that some people have is that the police just allow this to happen. That's exactly what the young mum, Catherine, I spoke to said. The police can't really do anything about it. They don't do anything about it. And I think, the sense that I've got is that they really want to, but they recognize that by the nature of these vehicles, they can't just go careering down narrow 20 miles per hour streets, which is what most residential streets in Wales are and across the UK. There's been a couple of high profile incidents, one in particular in Cardiff, obviously nearby to Newport, where there was controversy surrounding the potential police involvement in a incident in which two young lads who were riding an electric motorbike crashed into a bus and sadly died. And those famously led to some quite serious riots in which many police officers were quite badly injured, and lots of cars and houses were really badly damaged, and cars were set on fire as well. And I think that incident in particular was pointed out to me by the sergeant, who said, we're just really reluctant to get involved because of things like this have happened. And I think as well, a lot of people might say, well, they should chase people. And if that puts the people who are riding the bike at risk, then that's not the police's fault. However, it also increases the risk for pedestrians. If a person on one of these sur-ron bikes is desperate to get away, they might ride in a more reckless, more dangerous way, go faster on pavements where people could be walking with prams and with buggies. So I think the police recognise that trying to just chase these vehicles is really difficult, and they're trying other methods, including not just drone technology but intelligence. They say increasingly they're basically asking people, please tell us if you see that your neighbours are riding this antisocially and they're keeping it in their back shed, tell us it's there, we can go and seize it.
How reluctant or how willing is the community to be talking to police and giving them the intelligence that they need? I guess they're not really.
I think it varies, doesn't it, from area to area, I think. And I think what the police say, and I think what frustrates them, and why they're quite motivated, certainly the sergeant that I was speaking with is saying, once people actually see us making progress on this, more people are willing to give intelligence. So, if they know that if I say this, they'll get rid of it, then, and they will actually deal with this, then they go, oh, it is worth telling the police about this. But if they don't feel confident that the problem is going to get tackled, perhaps people don't come forward and they just want to keep their heads down and just put up with it, basically.
So the other question, which probably is naive on my part, maybe even stupid, but what exactly is illegal about the bikes?
There's no stupid questions here, Lucy. No, of course.
Just between you and I.
Of course. Well, essentially, this is the problem, is that by their definition, they are not illegal. These bikes are often called sur-ron bikes. So it's S-U-R-R-O-N. And
Never heard that expression before.
Essentially, it's like a dirt bike, but it's powered by electricity and they are by a battery, and they are perfectly legal to buy and to own and to ride on private land. As soon as you want to take a trip down the street on it, it has to be made roadworthy, and that means it needs to be registered, it needs a registration, it needs to have a license, it needs to be insured, and it needs to be modified, so it needs lights and indicators, what have you, all these things.
Oh, I see.
That's clearly not happening in these where lots of these people that you see around riding these bikes. And so because of what we discussed earlier, the police find that essentially because they're so easy to get away, they're easy to store closely, they are increasingly being used for stuff like drug running, which is another reason why police are keen to stop it. But they do, say as well that actually the dangerous riding is a serious aspect problem in itself, and some of these bikes are ridden incredibly dangerously. And across the UK, we have had serious injuries from people riding these bikes dangerously, even fatalities as well.
Yeah, because they do go just so fast. I think I'm right in saying that police in England and Wales will soon get new powers to crush these bikes sooner than they used to. Let's have a listen to Gwent Police's Temporary Chief Superintendent Jason White, who can talk about this.
It brings swifter justice to those persons responsible for causing adverse impacts within those communities and quality of life issues. But secondly, for me, it breaks that cycle of reoffending as well. Because what we often find is that prior to these changes, bikes were being seized and then on occasion being re-released back into the communities, back into the hands of the individuals.
So if they were illegally modified and then used illegally too, why were they then given back to them? Why were these bikes released back?
I think it's difficult, and it's somewhere where the police say that often the law hasn't quite kept pace with this problem. Now, I should say, to be clear, that police were already allowed to destroy them, but they had to wait quite a long period of time. It was a few weeks. And now under new powers being brought in, they'll be able to destroy them within just 2 days. And what the police say was happening was essentially, even if one of these motorbikes was being ridden illegally, perhaps it might be more complicated if it had been modified and there was clear evidence that it had been modified to be illegal. Essentially, as long as you owned the vehicle, and you were registered with the DVLA, and I believe that you could actually do that afterwards and prove ownership of the vehicle, you could pay the fine, pay the fee to the scrapyard and to the yard that had been storing it, and you'd get it back. And that sort of delay was allowing that process to happen, I think, more often than the police would have liked. And if for the ones that are being used for more sinister purposes, perhaps for, whether in gangs or for drug running, that hits the dealers where it hurts, according to the coppers, that these things cost money. And so if you can actually get them off the streets, then that actually hits the gangs where they hurt.
So it's all about the speed with which they can destroy the bike, really, and taking it and whatever activity it's involved with out of action to a point. So from what you've seen, because I think you've been doing this for a good few months, what do you think about these new powers? Do you think they're enough to get a handle on it, or do you think they're more, I suppose, just like a symbol to say, oh, look, we've crushed this, we've destroyed this, ta-da, kind of thing, it's gone? Do you think it's more like that, really? Or in terms of but the actual problem, do you think it's enough?
Perhaps it's a bit of both. I mean, I can certainly see the argument from Gwent Police, for example, will say that they're increasingly confiscating bikes. They said, they've confiscated 150 over the last 12 months. And, if some of those, even if just a handful of those are going back to people who were originally riding them dangerously because what the police felt was some kind of legal grey area or a loophole, they will see it as a win if they can just destroy it much quicker, and that's not happening. By the nature of the difficulties that police have in catching and confiscating these vehicles, certainly I don't think it's any kind of silver bullet. I'd be amazed if it led to the elimination of this problem. But I think, clearly, anything that stops more of those motorbikes going back into circulation when they've all, the hard work has actually been done of catching them is of benefit, and the police are very happy about that, certainly.
Rhys, thank you very much for running me through all that.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And until our next quick briefing, thank you very much for joining us.